Hello and welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Orange podcast. Tonight we'll look back at Saturday's hard-fought 0-0 draw at Cardiff and look ahead to this key fixture on Saturday against Burton, with Ed Walker who will give us a good analysis on Saturday's opponents. But first we'll look back at Saturday's game and all the key talking points with, first and foremost, Kurt. How are you doing, my man?
Yeah, I'm good. I think from our pre-pod chat, there might be a bit of difference of opinion about Saturday because I'm not too convinced by it. Take the point, but not sure.
And smiling, Hoggy, how are you, my man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm delighted with the point on Saturday because it still keeps our faint playoff hopes alive. We can still technically make it, but we need a win on Saturday to be reassured of that chance staying alive. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, we'll keep that momentum going, hopefully, at Bloomfield Road. But Kurt, you're at the game. I understand that you potentially might have rather stayed at home, but nonetheless, it was how was the experience? And obviously, credit to you and the travelling supporters because made a bit of noise coming through on the TV. But obviously, you're fairly rewarded, I would say. Obviously, you might not say the same thing, but
No, rewarded with a point. Like ultimately, remove the game. If it's 5-5, 6-6, 2-2, 0-0, it doesn't really matter. A point is, in our position, exactly what we need. If you're talking about a football spectacle, I thought it was pretty terrible, to be honest. I think Cardiff are in a weird place as a supporters group. There was no atmosphere. I expected it to be bouncing. There was no noise, and our fans, I thought, were really good. They're really positive. When it's not been a season full of positive experiences. So there was no fighting as well around any songs sung, like there was at Doncaster. But yeah, good travelling support. I thought decent enough numbers for Sky messing around with our fixture schedule again.
yeah, absolutely. Hoggy, how are you feeling come 3 o'clock on Saturday? Overall, pretty pleased, or were you
Yeah, I think
feeling?
wasn't too disheartened. I suppose before the game you would have took a point. After the game you probably sat there cursing. Obviously, if Bloxham takes his opportunity, we potentially nick all three, which would have been superb. But again, going back to the last pod we did, we spoke a little bit about individual awareness towards the impact upon the team as a whole. And Saturday, the performance overall felt much more like a team, a togetherness that had a level of awareness of the impact on players in and around them in terms of being much more disciplined and professional, which was the main positives that I certainly took out of it. But again, and I think we made the point as well, win, lose or draw on Saturday, just gone. We have to wipe the slate clean and take a very, very different approach towards Saturday's game coming. So be interesting to see how and what Evo does moving forward.
Yeah, completely agree with that one. And Kurt, I'll come to you for the lineup. How did you feel when it got announced? Obviously, some key decisions being made with the likes of Hamilton starting, and Honeyman obviously being dropped. So a slight change of personnel, but it's easy to say in hindsight he got it right. But at the same time, were you disappointed not to see a playmaker like Clarkson in there once again?
He kind of he made a strange comment in the week, didn't he, about how we were going to go and attack Cardiff? And as soon as I saw the lineup, I was like, well, you just lied to us outrightly, or you were trying to play mind games with Cardiff. I think, look, I kind of had a feeling that he was going to do this because the brand of football we've played all season is perfect for teams like Cardiff, where they want to dominate the ball. They have a high back line, and then you got players like Blocks and Fletch, Hamilton to stretch. Is that the game for Clarkson? Probably not. Saturday is, where you need a bit more creativity to break teams down. You know, I'd have been disappointed if this was September and we went to Cardiff with this formation. I'd have been really disappointed to see it. But it's not. We're in a predicament where we need to get points, and we need to get points quickly, however they look. So, yeah, it was expected. I think Honeyman's been pretty poor the whole season for us, so it wasn't a surprise for me.
Yeah, he's certainly not shone Hoggy as much as we saw him when we played Huddersfield at home, as an example, where I think after the game we were kind of admiring his sort of stamina, his performance in his endeavour to get us through that match single-handedly when he was running around like a terrier in the middle. But his performances, along with many of the signings this season, hasn't really come to light, and he was probably rightly dropped for this match.
Yeah, I'd agree, and he said it himself, in interviews as such, that he's not happy with what he's been doing and how he's been leading, etc. And yeah, credit to Evo. It still is a brave call, dropping your captain from a starting lineup. Anderson hasn't exactly been setting the world alight in the middle, and neither has Brown, but the two did work okay together in terms of being a bit more solidified and placing a bit of a block on Cardiff's midfield, who were obviously going to have much more of the ball. We didn't give them any easy openings through the middle and force them out wide, which is what Evo set out to do. It'll be interesting, like you say, now that Anderson's not going to be there next Saturday, to see who Evo brings in. I agree with Kurt. I think it absolutely is the game for Clarkson to come in and be as brave as you were away from home in your defensive shape at Cardiff, but doing the same at home and taking the game to Burton in a game we have to win. And for me, picking Clarkson over Honeyman would be setting off in the right direction. Doing that, whether he does that or not, I don't know. We'll find out on Saturday, of course.
Yeah, Northern Foxing UK said even gents, why isn't Clarkson starting? We brought him in and he is excellent. Yeah, I think we've come to the conclusion, Kurt, like what you and Hoggy just said, that it's probably the game to stay more solidified and less creative. But Hoggy, I will say just on that when we went to Huddersfield, and Evo did allude to Huddersfield as well, where we had moments in the game, he brought him straight in, and you'd think similarly to Cardiff, Huddersfield would have been the same sort of game where they were, in and around the playoffs. They were unbeaten at home for a very long time. Liam Manning just came in and he brought Clarkson and Anderson straight in with Royal Walters, and we went 2-0 up within about 25 minutes of the start. So do you think the sensitive issue of being in the bottom four, it comes into Evo's play, or do you just think it was a case of he sort of maybe learnt from previous lineups? I don't know, but like like Kurt said, he said one thing and gone with another, but it has previously worked in the past.
Yeah, I don't know if he's learnt from it, because you'd argue if we started well at Huddersfield and we didn't quite see it out, but there was enough positives there to go with it again. So I don't know where he's learnt to be more negative potentially in that, but I think it's clear Evo is starting to mix and match his lineups in respect of the opposition that we're starting to face, and I really don't mind that approach moving forward over the remaining games we've got this season, because I've called him out a little bit for continuously talking about his philosophy and vision for the club and where he wants to take us, and that's great. But you've simply at a point of one game at a time, no further than that. So it's nice to see, and I'm very much behind him in terms of chopping and changing for that. As much as I appreciate Kurt's point of view of the spectacle on Saturday, absolutely was not great. And as a fan who's made the effort to commit and get down to there on a Saturday morning, there's a top effort. So to see the lineup being delivered, having been promised an attacking starting 11, it probably was a little bit disheartening. But again, we've probably got to try and see the bigger picture of where that point, like Kurt's alluded to, is hopefully going to get us towards the end of the season, and take the lack of attacking threat from the word go on the chin, take the point, get out, and make sure we get 3 on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Kurt, we both sort of talked about it, and sort of watching the game back and extended highlights, which was like a minute for the first half. I think the right word is being used there. It was an organised first half. I think Kellyman had a header where Peacock Farrell pushed it away for a corner, and that was probably their best opportunity. Blackpool just having one block shot. It was more of a try and score sort of first half, if you were. I know that sort of maybe continued in the second half, but we did have some key chances. But watching it back, I would probably just say the biggest thing I was proud of is how we kept our shape and how we didn't sort of crumble and concede sort of 1 or 2 goals like we have done in the past. And also with set pieces, obviously we handled them pretty well too.
Yeah, I think the back three centre backs all had a very, very, very solid game. I didn't look at it too intently on Saturday, but I feel like we're marking corners a bit better. I think we were doing like some sort of zonal rubbish previously, and I think we've mixed that up with a bit of man-to-man marking, or maybe the other way around. I'm not sure. Either way, we've definitely changed it.
I don't think we were marking previously on corners, if I'm honest.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I think we're a bit more solid there. I think Jimmy had a really good game Saturday.
Yeah.
I think he's got a bit of a way to go to redeem himself from his chaotic sort of few games that he had. But he was very solid on Saturday, and so was Horsfall. I think with the exception of a few games, we just do look a lot better with Horsfall in, and no disrespect to Heatcray. The guy's injured. I don't know what he looks like as a full capacity footballer, but we know he's injured, and we're watching him play injured. We're watching him run injured, and that's not ideal. So I don't think that will have helped in any game. So we needed to be compact, didn't we? I think because that's what Everton wanted to do. So they sort of followed that really well and limited Cardiff to nothing really, didn't they?
Yeah, just before we move on to the second half, Hoggy, one say slight criticism, and you can't really blame him too much, but Real Watt was probably at his most vulnerable game. We'll talk about his indecisiveness in the second half as well in a second, but he was kind of run ragged on out wide, and are the games catching up with him? Because we initially saw some good creativity and some decent performances from him, especially, perhaps somebody say Port Vale at home. Obviously, he kept going down that wing and kept us sort of up the pitch, etc. But the last couple of games is kind of coming to the end of maybe his fitness or the games he's used to, because he's gone from 0 games to playing every single game since he signed for us.
Yeah, he got better as the game went on.
I think, ironically, after he went down, he come back really well, which I was going to say a bit later on.
He did, and let's not take away, you're playing against some of the better wingers at this level in the league, and Cardiff could have lots of the ball and lots of overlapping. And again, Kurt and Evo alluded to it. It was part of the plan to force them out wide, so he knew he would be under quite a lot of pressure. So I'm not going to be overly critical of him at all. Probably more critical of the first goal we conceded at Port Vale, where he completely misread the ball and got us in a lot of trouble. He didn't replicate any of that, which was positive to see. I'd always much rather see him on the right side of our defence than Ikwe. He certainly doesn't commit himself as much, and he's got a bit of pace about him to get back in and cover up for any errors he potentially may have. So not too worried. I agree. Husband had one of his better games, which is good, and needs to maintain that level. And it was nice to see, as expected, Horsfall bring out the best in Casey. I was just chuckling to myself, Kurt, when you were talking about corners. Who knows, if we carry on improving defensively from them, we might actually dare to push someone towards the halfway line when we're defending one of them, and maybe attempt to counteract. Who
Not
knows?
while Evert's here. They must have. I'm sure they have this like rule book at the FA for anybody that's a manager between the ages of 35 and 50 that you've got to follow a certain pattern that was maybe it's written by Pep, or you got to follow, as long as you follow the data, that's all that matters. But Cardiff, again, away from home, there was nothing to stop us putting CG on the halfway line, and we still didn't do it. So.
Yeah, I think even during their attacks, especially in the first half, Fletcher was on the edge of RD, obviously compacting that shape to the point where we had literally like 9 or 10 men in the box at points. So just to nullify them, as it were. But it wasn't, as Kurt said, that didn't make good viewing. But nonetheless, it obviously stumped them to create any key chances. But we'll move on to the second half. Kurt, I'll stay with you because you must have thought the away end was going to go a bit mental as a counter-attack ensued with Bloxham taking us up the pitch. And I know you put into the group that Ennis would have scored that, but my counter-argument is Bloxham brings us up the pitch a hell of a lot better and a hell of a lot quicker than Ennis potentially might have. A really good interchange between him and Fletcher, and the Fletcher's pass was, if I'm being honest, unbelievable in my opinion. I thought it looked too light, but it was a fantastic pull through to him. Should have been 1-0. What was your thoughts on the day?
I was right in line with it, so I knew he missed it as soon as he hit it. So it was a bit of a false dawn for me, but other people thought it was in. Yeah, he's got. I don't know why he's gone with the outside of his right foot, because it makes it more awkward for him, and it cuts the angle off. The keeper did great. He's a great keeper. Him. I think he was really solid all day, and his positioning was fantastic. So as soon as the through ball was through, he smothered him, didn't he? So. And really made him rush the shot. So I think one thing we can do is give props to the keeper, because he had not only had a good game, but in that moment stopped him. He's got to try go with his left, but I think he's a right winger of a front three. That's how he plays, and he, and that sort of moment showed that really. I like Bloxham a lot. I think he's got a higher ceiling than what he's currently got, because I think what we saw at the start of the season was a bit of. I don't think he could get himself match fit. Do you know what I mean? Athletically fit enough to last a football game. And whereas I think we're starting to see that now. He isn't off his feet after 20 minutes. Yeah, look, I think it might have been a bit unrewarded, but we'd have obviously taken it, right, if it had gone in the back of the net.
Yeah, Hoggy. Just adding to what Kurt said, when he came on against Port Vale, he was outstanding and, in my opinion, changed the game completely, despite obviously not getting the winner. We saw it, and I agree with Kurt. Also, I think, is a joke of a right wing. We saw it at Bloomfield Road, we saw it against Exeter, we saw it at Lincoln, we saw it so many times last campaign where he was just tormenting defenders and wing backs, wasn't he? So maybe there is room for it next season, or maybe he's going to be continue to be forced into that position. I don't know. But what was your thoughts on the chance? Do you agree with Kurt and think he should have scored, or do you think he's just not a natural finisher and that kind of surmised it?
I think you've certainly got to hit the target at least. I think Kurt's right. The keeper did come out very, very quickly, covered the majority of his angles really well. Yeah, if you try and dink it over the keeper and he makes a save, you go, fair enough, he's done well. But the weird part for me, he seemed a little bit off balance, like he'd overrun it himself a little tiny bit, and that's why he kind of came back on the outside of his foot. It was, I
Like
don't
he
know.
was falling over, was why he did fall over.
Yeah. Look, he'll be gutted. But again, the bigger picture, I think him and Fletcher worked really well off the ball, certainly on Saturday, and helped out defensively, and did in the second half, as you've alluded to. Tom managed to push up the pitch a little bit further and not continuously sit on the edge of our 18-yard box like we did in the first half. But even battling for aerial balls, it was quite nice to see both of them willing to put the body in a little bit more than what I feel has gone on in previous weeks. Certainly Fletcher, I know I called him out last week saying I don't think he's doing too much off the ball. I know he's scoring 20 odd goals or whatever, but I'd like to see more from him. And Saturday I did, which was positive. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them two starting again and leading the line on Saturday at home as we go into Burton.
Would you like that, Kurt?
I think you play Ennis personally, because what we were saying earlier on was that we're trying to be a bit more dominant, a bit more forward thinking. So I think Ennis gives you more of a threat in and around the box from different areas. Look at his goal. Can't remember who it was against. CJ to him. He's come back and he's taken the shot. Who was that against?
Mansfield.
Mansfield at home. I think Bloxham doesn't score that type of goal. I think if you're having five half chances in the box, Ennis is probably going to score one of them. I don't think you can say the same for Bloxham. I think Saturday was a perfect example of when you use Bloxham, you're trying to stretch it, trying to take it away. But maybe for a bit of confidence, maybe we stick with the same, and then we bring Ennis on earlier with 30 minutes to go. I think Saturday will be interesting to see how Taylor fits in if he's fit, because there's rumours that he could be available, right? And actually what we're looking for is, when we're playing these teams at home, is looking for someone to unlock and create something out of nothing and to link up. And annoyingly, Taylor started to look like he'd be that guy before he got injured.
I put into the group, we needed him Saturday to push him, put a through ball in behind the back line on a counter attack. He's more natural of a finisher than Bloxham, and maybe he scores that chance too. It's obviously all if buts and maybe, but the thought of potentially Taylor coming on with Bloxham on Saturday after Ennis and Fletcher's put in a shift is quite exciting, and exactly what we need, obviously going into sort of these crucial matches. Hoggy, I'll come to you. Goalkeepers Union. A Raw Walters indecisiveness kind of tries to tackle him, but Coates nowhere near the ball, and there's a really nice chance for Cardiff. I would have thought in my own head the striker would have wanted to put it further to the right hand side, but it's a really good reaction save and save he probably should make, but at the same time, a vital one in that moment.
It's a huge save, and I actually think it's better than the one that everyone's been giving him the credits for from the header at the end, because the save from the header is much more instinctive, close, and you'll make that save more often than not as a goalkeeper because it's so close to you. Whereas this one, you've got a lot more to think about. You've got to get your body in the right position, move your feet quick enough. You've got to have a really strong left hand when you get down. He only just got it round the post. And like you say it's one he should make, but the reality is he's not made that save a lot this season. Think about the goals that we've conceded. Doncaster goal, I think it was, from outside the box. Wigan potentially as well. Just Wigan goals were not Doncaster, just trickling in past. So I was really impressed to see that save made, and it's a better save than he's got credit for. Delighted that he's put in a great performance just before he clears off for the weekend at international break. Great timing, Bailey. Cheers for that one. but no, he has to make it. And again, probably the only time we made a bit of a. I know Walter slid into the tackle, but it felt a bit half-hearted. Really, it was strange. It
Yeah,
was
that's
more
what I
like
mean.
a
It's quite
block rather
indecisive, isn't
than a
it?
tackle. Yeah, indecisive. Yeah. Whereas you just think if that's Casey or Horsfall, they're absolutely smashing the living daylights out the ball player, man the lot. So yeah, but fair play to Peacock Farrell. He's done really well to get down quite really quick to that and turn it around the post, and as well, not putting it back into into a dangerous position where someone could quite easily tap in the rebound as well. So yeah,
As literally took the words out of my mouth. I said not only does he make the save, he clears it away from any danger as well. So yeah, absolutely. Luke, evening, buddy. Hope you're well. Ennis is the better player, but come back from injury overweight. He was so sharp earlier on in the season, but looks like he's towing a caravan at the moment. Yeah, I think he showed moments of being good in the press, but ultimately is nowhere near the Ennis that we used to see him running down on goal, etc. I do agree with that, but also do agree with Kurt. If you want anyone in the box, it's probably him or Taylor. So both are half fit, I suppose. So it will be interesting to see what happens on Saturday. Next moment in the match, then, Kurt. I hate short corners, but this nearly paid off. Nice little movement from Bowler to create the chance for the corner. Plays obviously a short ball with Brown and lays off to him, and it's a decent save by Trott in the end. He gets fingertips to it, and it could have been curling into that top left-hand corner. But again, a pretty good chance I say good chance, but well created chance, and a moment which I thought was going into.
I think this is why you've got to play Bowler every game, even if you've won him for 60 minutes, to get a feeling is he on it, because no one else is doing something like that in that team. Can you think of anybody that can hit a shot like that in that team? Nope. So yeah, it's a shame the season's gone like it has, because I'd love to see Bowler again in an attacking dominant team at this level, because I think give him the license to do whatever he wants, and he's so good to watch. He's one of my all-time favorite Blackpool players to watch, because of I haven't seen many players, your Hoolahans, your Charlie Adams as well, that can create something and do some magical stuff. So yeah, that game again isn't really for him, is it? When you're battling for a point, I think he played really well. I think he pressed well. I think he's brought another side to his game that he didn't show first, second, or whatever time we're on now. That he had, in terms of getting his foot in, tackling, pressing, doing the work that you have to do to be in a team that's struggling. Because otherwise he's just a luxury player, isn't he? And you might as well not have him on the pitch if he's not going to do that side of things, which I think we've seen at times this season. And I think Everett's had a word with him saying, look, you're in League One now. You can have a lot of games like this. You either get on board, or you're going to be sat on the bench, or I just won't have you in the squad.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Kurt. Hoggy, I was about to say the same thing. As much as we all wanted to live in a Steve Bruce world with Bowler on that right wing, obviously just killing matches off 3 or 4-0. Obviously, like Kurt said, hasn't panned out like that. But is this one thing that Everett has brought in that I like, is that different sort of industry sort of type player that is Bowler, because not only can he do what he did against Port Vale, which he showed in glimpses this season, but I was going to say he's kind of not become Mr. Reliable, but someone that you expect to perform as a defender as well as an attacker in this system, and I like what Everett's brought out of him.
Yeah, it's good to see. But any team at this level, certainly in the position that we're in, simply cannot afford to be not playing someone of the quality of Josh Bowler. And I think not looking, being a hypocrite and telling Everett not to look too far forward. But if you think about the idea of something like you talked about Bloxham before, not seeing him as an out-and-out striker as 2, and I agree, I don't see that long-term at all. But if you think of a 4-2-3-1, let's say, and you've got a 4 up front of Taylor, Ennis, Bowler and Bloxham, switching around between them, that's going to be fun to watch, isn't it? Cutting in from the right and the left and making all sorts happen. But again, the here and now is you've got to get the best out of him in a more structured formation that is able to defend and dig in, like you say, and he has been doing that, and you can see it between the fans. You can't question the commitment and the desire of the players in the last 2 games, certainly, and that standard cannot be dropped that standard, in my opinion, will very much keep us in this league. And it's nice to see players taking ownership, both defensively and not just offensively when they fancy it and it suits. And that's going to have to be the same again on Saturday to pick up the win that we need.
One thing on that, Hoggy, like I've not felt too many times this season the ball's not going in the net. Like when you feel it, it can happen right at any moment. Saturday felt a little bit different to that in that they can have the ball for as long as they want, take as many shots as they want. It's just not going in. And I think, Peacock Farrell had a good game. I've still got my problems with him. They're more structural goalkeeping problems in terms of his base position when we're in possession or out of possession, but no danger in our third, coming for crosses. But on Saturday, it did feel like collectively across all of them, the ball isn't going in the back of the net, and that's something that if you had that for an extra 5 games this season, we probably wouldn't even be talking about relegation. It'd just be another mid-table season, right?
100%, 100%. And even from a goalkeeping point of view, though, when you've got 10 people in front of you who are throwing the boys online and making tackles and committing, like you say, solidly as a unit, it's reassuring that you will also step up and bring your A game to the plate because you're not continuously being relied on. It's like when De Gea got loads of abuse at United when they were mid-table and he got shipped out late the season later on, despite winning Player of the Season before. He was facing 7-8 shots per game. Well, the law of averages, you're going to concede someone no matter how good you are. So to have an actual full defensive unit where it's not just me that's being relied on time and time again. I agree fully. Saturday Cardiff was simply never going to score because we actually fancied certainly committing to the first tackle and doing our utmost to pick up the pieces in the second ball as well, which hasn't been there all season. And it's been nice to hear players come out and admit that. And yeah, it sums it all up that, people are saying, oh, Peacock Farrell's not here on Saturday, typical international weekend ruining our starting 11. Well, if he'd been performing like an international throughout the season like he should have been, then we wouldn't be sat in the bottom 4 currently as well. So, yeah, here we are.
That's a really fair point. But I will come on to a moment from Peacock Farrell just now, Kurt. And as Mike has already said earlier on in the chat, really nice bit of defending from Husband at the back post to clear it off their striker's head to potentially make it 1-0, obviously, really late on. And from the following corner, it's an outstanding save. Hoggy maybe seems to think it's his second best save. I think probably pips the first just because of the timing and the reaction, and we've conceded so many from corners, but nonetheless both saves are imperative, and this one obviously because of the timing was vital.
Yeah, I think if that goes in, might as well just start planning our trips around League 2 next season, because I think it would have absolutely ruined us mentally. But actually it feels like a bit of a pivotal moment for us, to be honest. Some of those key moments and key saves, like it can spur us on now. We have to just get this over the line and get this season over with. There are moments in seasons that, such as that header, such as his 2 saves, that can change the fortunes. Because we will be under the cosh. It isn't just a case of it's going to be easy and we just win our home games. We still have to show character. This team has shown a lack of character on numerous times this season, and as I just said, the idea that the ball just does not go in the net hasn't been a concept that we've really drawn into. It feels a bit like we've always felt this season we'll be all right. Yeah, it will kick on at some point. It will click. We'll get the formation right, and eventually all the players will click, and then we'll just go on. And that's really sort of shown on the pitch in our performances. And like, oh yeah, it's just acceptable to concede a goal. Well, it actually isn't, because you're Blackpool and you're losing to Burton Albion, or you're losing to Port Vale, and teams that are brilliant football clubs, but we have aspirations a lot higher than where we're at. So we can analyse Saturday as much as you want. It's still a bit of a dire 0-0. But some of the themes from Saturday are what I want to see for those last games. Keep them on, add a bit of extra quality, add a bit of bravery going forward, and that has to come from Everett as well, right? The intention to go forward has to come from Everett. But the players showed that they give a toss, and I think that's what we wanted to see, right? So yeah, promising signs.
Absolutely. Hoggy, should CJ should CJ do better with his opportunity, or do you think it's it was one of those ones, wasn't it? He's not a striker, and he probably thought he was making the right decision by trying to smash it into the bottom corner. But I personally don't think the square's on. I just think the shot should be better. What was your thoughts?
I've not seen it back other than watching it live and seeing the replays during the game. So I don't know whether, like you say, he could pull it back across the box for the tapping or not. I'm not 100% sure if that was on. But then by proxy of that, then you've got to make sure, again, same criticism that I threw towards Bloxham. You've got to at least hit the target and make the keeper do something, not kind of do what you did in terms of making it feel like you put it into no man's land. But again, bigger picture, CJ put in a brilliant individual performance that was part of a much more solid team performance, and to be breaking away in the 90th minute as such and having Cardiff defenders chasing at your tail shows that we'd done a lot right prior to that. So yeah, my only criticism was you've always got to hit the target and make the keeper. We go back to what was the goal we scored away at Rotherham? Imre in the first minute or two. It was a really, really poor effort from Imre. Really, it was straight at the keeper, but it's gone through him because goalkeepers at League One, as we've alluded to, a pretty poor average. So you've always got to be hitting the target and seeing what happens. That'd be my only criticism from CJ on Saturday.
I think if he does pass it to Ennis, it has to come really early because he was just ahead of the defender as he broke away, so he didn't make that decision. So the moment got lost. Mike has said potentially Ennis could have gambled at the back post, but I think it's he would have to kind of know when the shot was coming in and how fast it was coming in because he does flash it quite well. He smashes it, doesn't he? So Ennis is going to have to kind of be there and let it hit his legs and go in, I suppose. I don't know if I'm wrong in that, but I don't think it's Ennis's fault, and I just think Hamilton maybe it could have just been a bit better, I suppose. But I'm not blaming anybody in that moment, but it could have obviously been 1-0.
I mean, let's make it right. We can't blame Ennis because how's Ennis meant to work out what CJ is doing when CJ didn't know what CJ was doing?
That's the point. Yeah.
I was just about to say, if you went and asked CJ, were you shooting or putting it at the back post? Now you'd be like,
He'd probably say, I don't know.
I have no idea. And that's if let's take into isolation, CJ had a very good game, right? He had a good game. That's exactly why CJ gets put in this team, is to be reliable defensively. When you compare wing backs, him against Walters, Christ, CJ looked magnificent compared to Walters in the first half. But CJ's a winger. He's not a wing back. He's not supposed to be defensive. My problem with CJ has always been that type of thing. It's like, commit to what you're doing. Commit to the cross. Commit to the shot. Stop doing neither. Like, stop.
Sometimes he doesn't do either, and he just stands still.
That's the problem. I don't think he actually knew what he wanted to do, and that's part of the problem. Like, maybe be a bit more selfish. Smash it to goal. Get us 3 points. When was the last time? Tell me a game that CJ scored in the last minute to win us a game.
Never.
And what I expect from my wingers is big game moments, right? Big game assists, big game things, and that's always been my problem with CJ. But I don't think it's fair to start going down that conversation when his actual role for Saturday was something completely different, and he did that very well. So, from my point of view, I've always had a problem with that attacking side, the intent to go and score or to get a good cross in, opposed to I don't want to watch CJ at wing back. He's only any good, in my opinion, properly, when he's given no defensive duties from in my opinion, if he wants to be that player. So he had a good game on Saturday. I don't think it's worth overanalyzing that too much, especially when he doesn't know what was going on.
No, look at the disappointment in your face, Kurt, having to say that. Let's analyse it more. Come on, let's analyse CJ's good performance more, Kurt. Please tell us more.
But CJ's been a mainstay in the team for a long time, and he hasn't got much better. He hasn't got. He's only got slower, although he's still bloody rapid. He's still going to be a problem in his team. Someone said, I don't know where I saw it, that Simon Sadler wants him to retire here. I think we've got to do some more shipping out in the summer, because
I'm sure that was a joke in the podcast chat.
Well, if it was a joke, and it wouldn't surprise me if he got a 3-year contract tomorrow. But in all seriousness, I think in the summer there needs to be a big review of some of these players that have been here for longer than 3-4 years. I'm talking Casey and that as well. I know you might like Casey, but Casey's had a stinker of a season.
Not this season, no.
Yeah.
Right,
I was
finally. Oh, sorry, gone.
I was only on the lineup, Kurt. I do agree wholeheartedly there needs to be an overhaul. And I think if we're all honest enough, the way Everton wants to take the squad currently forward, CJ would struggle to fit into that, in, like you say, in the role that the way Everton sees football being played. So, yeah, but hey, if you can get us over the line this season, then so be it.
Right, just before we bring in Ed and preview Burton, Hoggy, I will stay with you. Just a word on Roy Anderson, and obviously this is one of the players who's going to hurt being called up for the international break, but just probably his best game in Tangerine since joining. 13 out of 14 accurate passes, 4 out of 4 successful dribbles. His recoveries was 6, ground duels 1, 6 out of 8, aerial duels 1 out of 3. But I feel that him and Brown work exceptionally well together in the sense of we don't. I say exceptionally well. Kurt's laughing now, but I just feel like there's a bit more solidarity in that middle with those two, because Honeyman doesn't do the role that Karoy does, and Brown is always having to make up for it. We alluded to it last podcast, but it worked Saturday, and yes, they had lots of the ball, but they also had like 20 block shots and no clear-cut opportunities apart from the 2 which Peacock Farrell had to save. So just a word on Karoy, and I think he'll be a massive miss Saturday.
I agree in that his performance on Saturday was brilliant. I disagree. He'll be a massive miss this Saturday coming. I think it actually plays into our hands that we do have the option to play 2 defence-minded midfielders. However, with the greatest respect to Burton, and we've alluded to it already, we need to win our home games. So, in my opinion, you do not be needing to line up with Brown and Honeyman at home. It's one or the other, and Everton appears to prefer Brown at the minute. For me, Clarkson has to be coming in to get hold of that ball. You mentioned before about Taylor and Ennis playing. They're only as good as the service behind them. And if they're not getting those balls played through for the opportunities to happen in the box and in behind defenders, you're asking yourself, are Brown and Honeyman the 2 midfielders that you want playing those balls through? It's absolutely not. It's Clarkson who's the one who's making that happen. It's getting the ball out wide to Bowler to get that ball into the box. So I think it might actually be a blessing. And regardless of the result on Saturday, with the greatest respect to Anderson, because he was very good this Saturday in terms of being part of a solid defensive unit, I don't think there'll be many Blackpool fans walking out of Bloomfield Road on Saturday going, we missed Anderson today. I'd like to think we've got enough about us in the squad to go and win that game without him.
I think it plays in the hands if Everton's brave enough, but I think my point is if he plays Honeyman and Brown, we're going to miss Corey Anderson on Saturday, and that's my point. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I just don't think he will play Clarkson. But we'll have to see. We'll move on to Burton, and we'll bring into the stage. Ed, how are you, my man?
Trying to avoid getting blown away. It's a bit gusty tonight.
What, in your house?
I've not got very thick walls, so it could be yes. To be fair. I really felt the wind just a moment ago. It was properly blowing at me.
How are you, mate? Other than nearly being blown away.
Yeah, all fine, all good.
How's your feelings going into Saturday?
Into Saturday, can't ever expect anything with this football club. Is the main way to go with that. You can easily look at last weekend and say win over Bradford, double over them, brilliant. Don't always back it up. Don't always be quite sure. I think we're similar to yourselves in that we've got a couple of people away with internationals, just not quite enough to get this game called off and move it to a different date, for instance. So it's another match coming up in the target to the season of survival. I do not like ever trying to predict and forecast what this team's going to do, because I think we're one of the most unpredictable teams in the league. We seem to be much better with top-end sides than bottom-end sides, which you think would make yourself a bit more solid than you are this season. But yeah, here they are, kind of just a little bit of a gap now. But then again, by Saturday, that gap could be back to 2 points again. It's not as comfortable as I thought it was going to be this season.
Yeah, well, especially at the start of the season as well. But just a word to the room, really, and the chat. Like, do you think? I'll come to you, Ed, first. But do you think the international break should just be blanket across the EFL?
I think I believe the League One should probably behave like the Championship does now, because I don't know exactly how many we've currently got scheduled this weekend, but I can recall past ones, certainly in the sort of earlier parts of the season, you can end up with sort of 2 or 3 games out of 12 taking place because there's so many. And it's not just internationals of senior teams. People have youth internationals of home nations, for instance, Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales. They have their parts too, and these guys can be key players of the clubs. And with the rule in place that if you have 3 in your team away, you can call your game off. It's used as the excuse for a lot of people to get these games off and put them elsewhere. And we probably could really just take the league on schedule and fit into another place, albeit there's a limited number of 3 available weeks because they just have so many competitions. Best thing I'd do is just put the AFL Trophy back to straight knockouts and just stick him in there instead, because let's be honest, no one really cares about the trophy group stage anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
That's exactly what should happen, though. Like the LDV Vans Trophy should be over those international weekends to give you a chance to play your youth and other
Technically
kids,
is,
or
isn't
even
it?
the League Cups.
The official weeks are kind of the week just before that international. It certainly was this season.
Double back
not
them,
like-
do them over the weekend. So if there's a game if there's an LDV game or whatever it's called now on a Tuesday, put the next game on the Saturday, so that your youth players are getting a bit of consistency playing with maybe more of your senior players. From our point of view, it'd be great, rather than waiting 3 months for the next game or another month and a half for the next game and having to go play at Bamber Bridge in the whatever league that is. We seem to waste some of those games, but I don't necessarily agree. We've got a big enough squad that you can lose 2 players. It's why change the whole world for it? And I just don't agree. Even some of the Premier League teams, they don't have a substantial, outside of your top 6, they don't have a mental amount of players that go away. I don't agree that it should be cancelled personally. I think you should be using your youth.
Fair enough. Interesting point. I'll leave that to the chat and the comments afterwards. Mike said there is more international players in League One now. It should be across Champions League One, yeah. A bit like what Ed said. Ed, since November and that amazing game and the Jake Beasley header against Blackpool, how has your season been? It obviously wasn't a good afternoon for Blackpool. We probably expected a lot different to the performance we put in, but that sort of has followed suit in a lot of games this campaign. But looking back at fixtures, one thing I will always sort of allude to with you and looking at results is you're always within games, but you've lost some consistently. And like you say, you had some great wins like Huddersfield and more recently Bradford. But I say you're always in games, but just not consistently winning them.
I don't think I need to say anything. You've summed up pretty perfectly there, really. Done the job to me there, to be honest. That win that was the last international break, wasn't it? That feels like a very long time ago. And I think that was I think that was back-to-back wins, and that's the only back-to-back wins we've had this season, having just played Bradford actually the week before. So the schedules work the same way. The season's just been a really mixed bag. The most uncomfortable period was probably the very end of December into the start of the new year, because the club went through quite an injury crisis, really limited options, particularly in defence, and the forward line meant I remember going to Plymouth Argyle, for instance, on the 4th of Jan, and we had to basically put a reserve team out, and we just got comfortably beaten 3-0. It was a complete waste of a trip. And there was just hope that slowly people could start coming back in and getting back to fitness and keep it going and grab the occasional victories. And I feel like I've enjoyed the first half of the year a bit more than I still have the second half, because the first half of the year, I think after beating yourselves, we were sat 12th in the top half, which is quite nice. Normally spending quite a lot more of the season down the bottom end, and that kind of drop off in December left it a bit close, and you get a little bit distracted by sort of mini FA Cup run where you end up playing West Ham United in the 4th round and then take your focus back to league matters. It's just kind of ticking along. We that win over Bradford at the weekend takes us to 46 points. 2 years ago, we finished on 46 points in 20th. Last year, we got 47. So it's very likely they end up with more points this year, yet because of how tight that bottom of the league on table is, could still go if you don't get like 50 something. It's a very strange league this year compared to last year.
Yeah, you won your next game. I think it was Boxing Day against Northampton. That was like a month and a bit later. That, like you say, you didn't really build on that, and that's why you're probably in around this now without finding consistency like ourselves.
Yeah. So Ed, you've alluded to the fact international weekend's going to play a little bit of havoc as such. Was chuckling to myself actually, because I watched the reverse fixture in a bar in Albania on my phone following England, and that was comfortably the worst 90 minutes of the weekend by a long way. So I'm very much team Ed for all calling off all football on international weekends in League One. Sorry, Kurt. However,
I mean, Tirana or Burton on Trent, it's a no-brainer, really, isn't it? I don't blame you for that.
Honestly, flip of a coin. Heads I was in Burton, tails I was in Tirana, so the rest is history. This weekend, though, key players that you've got coming into Saturday? Have you got players coming in to replace those who are out on international duty? What should we expect from yourselves?
Well, that's the big boost to yourselves. Is one of our two key men in the front line is away with St Kitts and Nevis. Okay, couldn't even tell you what kit they play in St Kitts and Nevis over in the Caribbean. I don't even know if you can find those games to even watch them. But Tyree Shade, second top scorer, has been called up for them, so he's out. That will weaken the front line because there's a very notable difference between that front two of him and Beasley and then what's behind it. It might still be a mobile forward to try to play alongside Beasley, but that will just not look as effective because ultimately what makes Burton win games and play at their best is Beasley as a focal point and Shade as the lively man getting into the channels and drifting wide and taking on men, and no one else in the team really does that to the same level as him. So it's an over weakness there. The other guy who's out away with Guyana is Terence Van Cooten, who admittedly at the minute is a backup centre-back, probably wouldn't start in the back three anyway. So other than that, we're kind of as we were. We're just waiting on Charlie Webster to reappear. I think Webster's last game was yourselves, if I remember right. I think he came off in that win. And he had was it an ankle injury or a knee injury, one to two. He had surgery for it, and he's been out ever since. And the club has basically just been teasing us these last 2 weeks because he's in all the training photos, all the training videos, and we're just waiting for that point he appears on the team sheet again at some point, probably on the bench first and then coming on. And we're just desperate for it because he was the best player in the first half of the season. He's a really good creative technical midfielder, and we just want to see him in that 10 role behind the front two for the rest of the season and just see how good that can go. Because in the time he's been away, the front two have started getting a lot of goals, and we just want that key creative asset behind him to really go through these last 2 games of the season, really.
Yeah, he was someone that I was going to mention, actually. He's a good player. Talk to us a bit about Gary Bowyer, because obviously his stint at Blackpool was in some of our more darker times, even though he managed to sort of steady the ship and get us playing okay football from the highlights that I watched from afar. What's the perception of him this season?
Oh, you can't do much wrong with Gary Bowyer. I think this is why I like doing the Blackpool cod, because I actually can talk about Bowyer in a positive light, whereas other people sometimes you have to go to other clubs and say, well, he is actually better than you guys think he is, because he's had a mixed bag throughout his career. I know Blackpool, it's probably Blackpool and Dundee are the kind of guys you want to get involved with, talking positively about Bowyer with the way his career's been. We as a club have been trying for, I'd say, the last 5-6 years to replace Nigel Clough, who had such a big influence in all aspects of the team, both on and off the pitch, and that stalwart figure over 2 different spells, left as COVID hit, lockdown hit, and the season curtailed in 1920. And throughout the time since, we've probably gone to realize just how much of an influential figure he was from all that he did within the team. And all the managers who come in, largely to invest into relegation battles, they've been able to have short-term effects at best, kind of galvanize the group, keep them off over the line. Then you go into the new season, things go stale, and they have to be let go. Bo is the first one, really, I think, since Clough, where you feel like there's some longevity here, some actual staying power in him, because I just love the simplicity of him. It's a very measured approach to his interviews. There's no kind of brash, outlandish statements to come after victories or defeats. He doesn't overly praise players or overly slate players, for instance, after results, but he's still the right level of honesty about how the game's gone. He just plays a practical shape, which is not something some of the other managers that do. We play a 3-5-2 where the wing backs are actual wing backs. Some managers in the past have tried that formation and put centre backs out there. It's just never felt right. He wants to build a practical team. He's got very invested into this more modern ownership setup we've got, where we have a more data-driven approach. He's got himself happily invested into that, understanding of that, trying to get that to work well alongside himself in the kind of head coach role. He's just really liked that. There's nothing really negative to be said. The feeling was at the start of the season, the biggest chance of us pulling us again survival as one of the smallest clubs in this league is the fact that he's here, because he's got pedigree above our level, and he's probably the first manager we've had in about 5 years that has pedigree above Burton's level. So it's really, really pleasing to have him in here.
Ed, do you think that, I'm thinking to what we did at Cardiff on Saturday, do you think without having Sharda available on Saturday, Bowie might be tempted, rather than going 3-5-2, to maybe go a 4-5-1 with Beasley up front on his own and sit in? Because if you can get a point, that will keep that 4-point gap for you, and it's another game gone to safety. Is that potentially an option?
There's no wingers in this team. It's been recruited for a 3-5-2 shape. It's centre forwards, midfielders, and wing backs more than anything else. And the guys who play at wing back I want them as wing backs, not full backs. I think they need that responsibility of an outside centre half behind him. It just suits them a lot better. So I think he'll just maybe play Fabio Tavares or Kane Adam, the alternatives, lively forwards alongside Beasley, and just go with that, really.
I was going to say, I know we're traditionally how you set up, but how I know you can't predict what this team does, as you already said at the start of the show, but how do you expect Saturday to go? Because Kurt and Hoggy and I will probably vouch for each other and say we don't know how we're going to perform at home. We've been really volatile. We've not really performed too well at Bloomfield Road. There's been some really good moments, and the win against Port Vale was one of those. But again, you expect to be a little bit better than we were sort of during the start and the middle of the game. So how do you think you're set up against us if you were to predict it, and how do you think the game will sort of unfold?
I'm really surprised this falls in the relegation 6-pointer bracket, because in my eyes, you weren't meant to be in this season. I don't really know how this has ended up here.
And our eyes
With Bruce,
as well.
Bruce starting the season and Everett coming in, I thought, all right, that might be okay. And it's kind of not.
This
really...
season feels like it's been going for 2 years. We've just been there all the time. So it's yeah. We're kind of used to this sort of game now and hoping things change. And the last two have been a bit more positive, but Saturday is still obviously feeling horrible still because of the importance of it.
Oh, no, I get that. The thing is, I have hated Blackpool away. Thought I've lost track of the number of years. I can't remember last time it was good to actually go there, because it's normally been sort of earlier in the season and we've had some initial hope, and it's just been crushed because we just go there and barely even have a shot on goal, let alone actually score and all. So I don't know. We'll market ourselves as a fan base as kind of a key game. We'd like to get some extra breathing space, but I think it's probably seen as more key in your eyes at the minute, just because there's a gap to make up between ourselves. So if it was to end in another defeat, as it often seems to be at Bloomfield Road nowadays, I don't think it would be considered the end of the world for us, particularly because we seem to do better against more top-end sides compared to bottom-end sides, certainly.
Yeah, we've been very poor across the board. We haven't got any runs of form or anything like that. It's been probably one of the worst seasons in my lifetime, I think. I don't know about you, Hoggy, Tom. I can't think of many seasons as bad as this, with the level of quality of players that we've supposedly got as well, to be down where we are.
That's the frustration. The quality on paper that we have, certainly, like you said, Ed, should be nowhere near the situation we're in. And we've effectively backed ourselves into the corner of having 5 cup finals at home that we simply have to win, and anything else we can pick up in between on the road is an absolute bonus. So, you know, if we're not to beat you, then you're looking at your last 4 home games going, you've got to win all them and hope that, you know, is 12 points even going to be enough from where we are now? Are Exeter, if they're the ones we're hunting down, going to continue to lose every game for the rest of the season, or are they going to pull a win out of somewhere? And surely that run can't continue for them. Yeah, it's just a mess, and like Tom says, it's been going on for far too long, and we've got ourselves into it. I'm still of the belief that I'm glad we dropped into the relegation zone when we did, because it really did feel like we were just drifting towards it closer and closer to the end of the season. It was going to be those walking out of the Medeski or whatever that stupid dump's called nowadays at the end of the season and going, oh, brilliant, we're in League Two. And no one, you know, it didn't actually happen until the last day. So it's felt like since we dropped below the line, there's been a bit of a change in tempo and mentality in the club, which has been quite positive. And so far, we've reacted positively in the 2 games since.
I hope we're safe by the time that Reading game comes, so I have an excuse not to go. Either safe or relegated, either or, it would be a great reason for me to not have to go there. If we need to get a point or 3 points at Reading, I'm going to be trudging myself off to that stadium because I hate it there.
Yeah, it's not good. Ed, do you have any questions for us?
I kind of thought it'd get brought up. What reception will Beasley get? Is it going to depend? I suppose it depends a bit on how the game goes, doesn't it? And what he does relative as an opposition player now. But when he initially comes out, would you expect any kind of reaction towards him?
I was going to say it depends how he celebrates his hat trick, personally, but
he only gets braces, Kurt. He doesn't do hat tricks. Okay. That's Shade's job. Well, sorry.
We'll see on Saturday. You know, I think Beasley was he's brought in at championship level, which is a substantial distance above his level, and he is someone that you need to play around in terms of getting balls in the box. So I don't think there's any like hard feelings there. Ironically, we probably could have done with him this season because our strikers have struggled to win a header between them. So yeah, I don't think there'll be any challenges for them.
I think he respects us, but the reception he got when he scored and throughout the game is the reason he celebrated in the manner he did, and I don't blame him at all. He got lots of abuse and scored, and he rightly should have celebrated in the way he did. So he was always respectful to the fans, and he should only get respect, in my opinion, when he comes out. But after the 90 minutes, he'll be clapped off. But fingers crossed, obviously, it's after a defeat. But yeah, I was just going to talk to you, Ed, obviously very knowledgeable about the EFL and what's your thoughts on the relegation battle, of course. Hoggy has already said that Exeter's run can't continue, but it feels like we've got you've got Exeter, you've got like Leyton Orient, we've got Leyton Orient and we've played obviously Wigan in recent weeks, etc. But if you have a look at Exeter's run, they've got obviously Leyton Orient next, and then they've got us. So if we manage to pick up 6 points in the next two, there'll be a 6 point gap between us and Exeter. But then they've still got to go. They've still got Doncaster to play. They've still got Stockport to play. They've still got you to play. Then they've got Bradford. So their run is pretty horrific.
Have you got their also recent results? Can you scroll up a little and show it? Because I just
they've lost 7 in a row. Yeah,
just want to kind of make a point. Look, if you get a little glance at it, there's defeats, and then there's a draw with ourselves. So we went and had a 1-1 draw there, which we felt at the time was all right. And I've seen the results around Exeter since and thought, you know what, maybe not. Maybe we should have kind of got a little bit more out of them at St James's Park compared to what was actually given there.
We got battered against them as well.
How did they lose to Rotherham 4-0? Rotherham are atrocious.
I don't get Rotherham either. It's the whole bottom of that league is very confusing. There's teams in there that in my mind shouldn't be there, yourselves included in that. I mean, Rotherham and Wigan for a long time, I've said winning League One just go straight up. So the fact they've been themselves in the campaign they've had is remarkable. Northampton, just too weak, really. Port Vale have got far too much to do, you'd say, really.
If you're an Exeter fan looking at those 3 games, Orient, us, and Doncaster, that's it, isn't it? Your life depends on that, realistically. Because if you can get, let's be honest, they can get 9 points from that, then suddenly there's a gap, and they're not worried at all going into what appears to be quite a bit of a tough run after that. So it's none of them games are going to be a walk in the park. They're going to be absolute dogfights. It's not going to be pretty. And again, like you say, Ed, there's teams around that are still. I mean, I know Doncaster are winning tonight or whatever, but there's teams that will continue to get dragged back into it that you don't expect. Wigan, okay, they've got a couple of good results lately, but on the flip side, saying Exeter's negative run can't continue, can Wigan's positive one carry on? The new manager bounce.
Taylor, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just got a horrible feeling. I think it will go down to the wire curtain. Sorry, I think we're going to have to go to Medeski with something on the line, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm off a different opinion. We have a look at your fixtures.
What, you think we'll be relegated long in advance of that, Tom? Is that what you're saying?
No. I don't yet. That's not my thought process.
You can have a look at these fixtures you want, Tom. You cannot predict any single one of them.
No, but not yours. Your set looks a bit more throw the dice type thing. But I think Exeter's, they've got, unless they fix up from this, they've last one in January. They've got to really turn a table to beat Stockport. Us, Leyton Orient, yourselves. They've really, really got to turn a corner. And I think Big Dog Walker said no. Big Dog said I think 3 wins and a draw will be enough. I think 10 points. I think if we win our next, obviously, couple of home games, and then I think we can get another win in there. I think like 3 or 4 wins, or definitely 3 wins and a draw is enough.
I think we're aiming for 52 points as well, and saying that might be the buffer for survival this year. So I'd agree with that.
Yeah, if we win our next 2, like we'll be 6 points away from Exeter, and they've still got to go to Burton. They've still got to go to Stockport. They've still got to go to Bradford, and they've still got to pick up like 9 to 12 points from all of those games, because that will be the gap that they need to make up. So I don't know. I'm not that optimistic about performances. I just think we'll do enough, or Exeter will be slightly worse.
It's in our own hands, isn't it? But the reason we're in this mess at the moment is because of the lack of consistency by the quality that has not turned up week in, week out. Whereas I think we're all from tangerine tinted specs with the performance levels that we've put in the second half of the Port Vale game and the effort in the Cardiff game. That application over the next set of home games certainly should be enough to get us where we need to be. But it's going out and doing that, and as we've seen so far in the previous 35 games or whatever or so, it simply hasn't been there, and that's why we are where we are.
Yeah, we did go through a period of time, and now Exeter are taking that off us as looking like the absolute worst team in the league, weren't we? Categorically, if we were bottom, you would have been like, yeah, of course, makes sense. But
Ironically,
it got much worse.
I know Port Vale have been horrific this season, but they put 5 past us. I actually thought they used the ball quite well up front. I think their big lad, you know, was quite decent at doing his role, and they had the odd moment, but they've just been so diabolical at the start of the season. They've got no.
They're too
hope.
busy winning the FA Cup, Tom. That's the problem for them.
Yeah, could you imagine?
Knock out Chelsea, semi-final, final, easy, job done. League 2 next year in Europe. That's Port Vale's
I
target.
actually wouldn't be shocked if they beat Chelsea. You know, just
I don't think I would either.
agility of them, if I'm honest. But yeah, I'm going to call that pod Hoggy or Kurt, unless you've got any more questions for Ed.
No, I'm all good. I just hope your stinking run at Bloomfield Road continues, Ed, with the greatest respect.
Are you going on Saturday, Ed?
No, I don't. I've had enough of Bloomfield Road defeats, and I don't remember last time I actually saw a goal there. It's been a while since it's happened.
Q3 points for Burton.
I think the last time we actually got a result there was behind closed doors in COVID. So that kind of sums up how I feel about that place at the minute. So, yeah.
Anything from yourself, Kurt?
No, like you're supposed to be excited to go to football, but it was only about an hour and a half for me on Saturday, but a 0-0, not an awful lot happened. And I just watched Cardiff pass it around for 90 minutes and spoon the ball into Rose Z.
Oh,
How many times did they have a shot and it went into Rose Z? It was unbelievable, right?
I forgot to mention, I said it in the chat, Kurt and Hoggies, you've both seen this stat, Ed, but on Saturday, Cardiff's back 5, so defenders and the goalie, had 499 touches, which is more than our entire team.
Sounds like Cardiff.
Their Fish had 128 touches, which was more than like 3/4 of our team alone. So yeah, they used to, as Kurt said, they used to criticise Swansea. We beat them 1-0 at Bloomfield Road when they had 82% possession, and it's just passing for passing's sake. And it was not good to watch. And like Kurt said, considering they're second and going for autos, it was like they were mid-table and not fighting for anything.
Did a great burger though, so it's worth the trip.
Yeah. Right, gents, I'm going to call that pod. Ed, thank you so much for joining us, man. I'll catch up with you during the week.
Pleasure, boys.
Take care, mate. See you later. Right, boys, we'll be back next week, hopefully reviewing 3 points. Then it's Good Friday against Exeter, isn't it? We've got 2 games in 4 days, haven't we? So I kind of prefer it that way, because this week is, I can't believe it was a Tuesday. I just can't. Saturday, it can stay away for as long as it can be, but also I need it to come so we can like accept what's going to happen.
I just hope the players don't freeze and they embrace. There's going to be a big atmosphere, a big attendance. There's going to be a good atmosphere. We know there's a lot on the line, but as you know, Kurt alluded to from some of the defensive blocks, off the ball movement, commitment, desire to want to win the ball back at Cardiff, that kind of approach will be warmly welcomed at Bloomfield Road, and the fans will very much get behind that. And hopefully Evo can pick the starting 11 and utilise the subs bench with the quality that'll be on it to get us 3 points. The worry is, historically, when we have a week's rest to prepare for these kind of games and we have a big attendance and a big atmosphere, we fall flat on our face. So let's put that to bed and get 3 points, and then roll into hopefully kicking Exeter when they're down and really pushing forward away from this mess that we're currently in.
Yeah, just 3 tickets remain in the North Stand. I don't know how the rest of the stadium's looking, but certainly behind that goal, Kurt, is going to be a raucous atmosphere, which Hoggy's already said, one that the players really need to step up to. It would be a joy to be 3-0 up at half time and just enjoy the rest of the match. I don't see it going that way, of course, but credit to the fans, Kurt, for showing up and listening to not only Simon Sadler, but obviously getting behind the team and pulling us through this mess, hopefully.
He guilt tripped me into going, so he had the desired effect for Saturday. And to be honest, he is right. Ultimately, the players will come and go, right, but the football club will stay. And not a single part of me wants to go to Newport County, Gillingham, Tranmere on a regular basis, right? And I think The fans have a part to play, and I think our fans are fantastic, right? They are fantastic. They've put up with a lot of crap compared to a lot of football teams. I hear Man United fans moan like hell about losing in the Champions League or not making Champions League and stuff like that. And actually, our fans have been through a lot. So if we can make any difference on Saturday, then we definitely will do. And the numbers, I just hope we don't concede after 45 seconds or whatever it is again, because that's a real sort of stomach punch, isn't it? So the fans will show up. It's down to the players Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we'll call it pod. We'll be back next week to look back at this game, and fingers crossed, I look forward to another 3 points at Bloomfield Road. But from now and from everyone at the It's Not Orange podcast, have a great evening, have a nice week, and up the ball on Saturday.